Yeah, what is exception handling or error handling? So while developing application, you come across different types of errors, right? While developing application, you come across different types of errors. You have a different types of errors, right? So one is compile time errors. One is compile time errors, and second one is runtime errors. While developing application, you come across different types of errors. So generally, you come across two types of errors. One is compile time, and one more is what runtime. So what is a compile time? What is a compile time errors? So generally, all syntax errors. Okay, all syntax errors are called compile time errors. Okay, all the syntax errors. Okay, syntax errors are called compile time errors. All syntax errors. So what will happen if there is a syntax error? Your program is not executed. If there is a compile time error, if there is a compile time error, so program is not executed. If there is a syntax error, program is not executed. Means, for example, if you see this, for example, every every block must have at least one statement. Suppose I write 10 greater than 5, then I'll say print hello. So every block should not be empty, right? So yeah, this block is empty. So this print is not a part of if. This print is what here outside the if. It is not a part of if. It is outside the if. So what will happen if I run this program? What will happen if I run this program? So if I run this program, so immediately it is given which error, syntax error. So expected and indented block after if statement or line number 1. So this is which error, syntax error. So until you don't rectify this error, your program is not executed. Until you don't rectify these errors, your program is not executed. See here. So until you don't rectify this error, your program is not executed. So this is a syntax error. So the error which is given by the compiler, so that you can call it as which error, syntax error. If there is a compile time error, program is not within program, or if there is a compile time error, program is not executed. So these errors has to be rectified by programmer. These errors, so these errors has to be rectified by programmer in order to execute program. So who will rectify this? Programmer only, in order to execute the program. If you don't rectify these errors, your program is not executed. If you don't rectify these errors, your program is not executed. So you have to rectify this. I mean, programmer has to rectify these errors in order to execute the program. Programmer has to rectify this error in order to execute the program. So if you don't rectify it, your program is not executed. So you have to remember this. So, okay, there is one more type of error which is called as runtime errors. So, what is a runtime error? Okay, if there is a syntax errors are called compile time errors. But okay, there is no errors in my program. There's no syntax errors in my program. Okay, suppose I'll try to say a equal to integer of input. Okay, enter first number, b equal to integer of input, enter second number. Okay, c equal to a plus b, and then I print a value, b value, and c value. So I input the first number and converted that to integer. Second number is converted to integer, and c equal to what here? A plus b, or a divided by b, and I print a, b, c values. So there is no syntax errors here. There's no syntax error. If there is no syntax error, your program is executed fine, right? So I enter the first number is 5. So what is the value of n1 here? 5. Okay, so the value of n1 is 5. So I try to input the numbers. So what is the value of n1 here? 5. 5 is the value of a. Then enter the value of b as a 2. So what is the value of b? 2. Then 5 divided by 2. So 5 by 2 is what here? 2.5. Okay. Yes, 5 divided by 2 is a 2.5. So I enter 2. Now you can see the result. You can see the result. 5 is a value of A, and 2 is a value of B, and 2.5 is a value of C. Now I try to execute again. Now when I execute again, so I try to execute again. I try to execute again. This time I enter the value of A is 5. So what will happen? The value of A is given 5. So I enter the value of B as A. Now the value of A is 5. The value of B is given what? 0. What is the value of B is given? 0. So what will happen when I press enter? Immediately it is given which error? 0 division error. But when I run first time, I input the value of A is 5. The value of B is a 2. Then the result is given what here? 2.5. A value is 5, B value is 2. The value of C is what here? 2.5. The value of C is a 2.5. Okay. But when I run this second time, I've given A value as 5, but B value as what? 0. But immediately it is given which error? 0. But first time it is not given error. But second time it is given what? Error. So why this error is occurred? Because of there is a rule for division or not? Yes. So a number cannot be divided with what? 0. So here end user has done mistake. What is a mistake done by the end user? It tried to input the denominator. It tried to input the denominator as what? 0. You try to input the denominator equal to what? 0. But Python cannot divide. Python cannot divide number with what here? 0. This is which error? Syntax error? No. This error is occurred during the execution of program. This error is occurred during the execution of program. So the errors what you get during the runtime, the errors occurs during the runtime are called which errors? Runtime errors. So all logical errors are called runtime errors. Logical errors. See, the logical errors are called which errors? Runtime errors. So if there is a runtime error, within program, if there is a runtime error, or if there is an error during runtime, okay, what will happen? Program execution is what? Terminated. Program execution is terminated. If there is an error during runtime, program execution is terminated. During runtime, what will happen? Program execution is terminated. Okay. Yes. All logical errors are called runtime errors. If there is an error during runtime, program execution is terminated. But why this runtime error is occurred? The runtime error is occurred. The runtime error is occurred because of wrong input given by what? End user, or input given by end user means the person who run the program. The person who run the program, the runtime error is occurred because of wrong input given by end user, or input given by end user does not satisfy condition. So condition given within program does not satisfy condition given within program. For example, if you take notepad itself, for example, notepad. If you take a notepad, what will happen in notepad here is what will happen in notepad? For example, if you take this is a notepad. Okay, if you take this is a notepad, I'll try to say file open. I say file open. So what will happen if I give wrong file name? What will happen if I give wrong file name? Will a notepad will close up? No. But rather than notepad is closed, is it notepad handle this error or not? Yes. Immediately it will display the message. This file is not found. But is it notepad is closed or error is handled? Error is handled. Okay, error is what? Handled. So this is a runtime error. See, when I'm trying to open the file, which is not exist, right? This file is not exist. I try to open the non-existent file. If I try to open the non-existent file, what will happen? Okay, is it notepad is closed or handled? Handled. It means this is a mistake which is done by end user. See, that is what? Logical errors. All logical errors are runtime errors. And these runtime errors are called exceptions. What is exception is? So what is an exception? Exception is an error. Exception is an error which occur what? During the execution of during the execution of what? Program. Are all runtime errors. All runtime errors are called which one here? Exceptions. All runtime errors are called what here? Exceptions. Or logical errors. Exception is a logical error or runtime error. So when there is an exception, when there is an exception, when there is an exception during, when there is an exception during runtime, program execution is, when there is an exception during runtime, program execution is what? Terminate. Okay, program execution is terminated to avoid this abnormal termination of, to avoid this abnormal termination of termination of program, we use what? Exception. We use what? Exception handlers. Why we are using exception handlers? To avoid abnormal termination of what? Program. What is a need? What is a need of exception handling? Need of exception handling is, or error handling. Need of exception handling or error handling. So the first one is avoiding abnormal termination of program, converting system defined error messages to user defined error messages. Converting system defined error messages means the end user cannot understand what is this error is. So we convert this system defined error message into what? User defined error message. Means you are converting into user understandable. You are converting into what? User understandable. So what is the need of exception handling or error handling? Avoiding abnormal termination of program, converting system defined error messages to what? User defined error messages. Okay. So these are some of the usages of which one? Exception handling. So what is the exception is? Exception is which error? Runtime error. So what is a runtime error? All logical errors are called runtime errors. The errors which occur during the execution of program. The errors which occur during the execution of program. That errors you call it as what? Runtime error. So the errors which occur during occurs during execution of program are called runtime errors. So why this error is occurred? Why this error is occurred? Because of wrong input, or the input given by end user doesn't satisfy the condition within the program. Doesn't satisfy the condition within the program. Like, for example, there is a list. The list is having 5 elements. If I say list 1 of 0, fine, no problem. What is the value at 0? 10. Okay, what is the value at 0? 10. So what is the value at 0? 10. And if I'm saying list 1 of 1, so what is the value at 1? 20. So value at 0 is 10. Value at 1 is a 20, right? Value at 0 is a 10 and value at 1 is a 20. Yes, fine. If I'm saying list one of 3, what is the value at 3? 0, 1, 2, 3. What is the value at 3 here? 40. But what will happen if I give list one of some 8? So is it any index 8 is exist here? No. So this is a mistake done by whom? End user. This is a mistake done by whom? End user. Then immediately you get error. What is that error here? Indexer. Is it this error is a runtime error or not? Yes. So this error is again which error here? Runtime error. Okay, why this error is occurred? Because the wrong index given by whom? End user. So every error, when you're talking about error, index error, what is this error here? Zero division error. All these are the types. Okay, each error is one type. each error is each error is one type. Each error is one type or class. Each error is one type or it is called as one class. Now creating object of creating object of creating object of creating object of error class, creating object of error class and giving to pvm, giving to python virtual machine is called generating error. It's called what is this? Generating error. Creating object of which class? Error class and giving to which one? Python virtual machine is called as generating error. Generating error or rising an error. Generating an error or what? Rising an error. Now who will rise an error? A function will rise an error. A function rises an error. For example, if you take integer is there, integer function is there. Integer function is used to convert string to integer and integer to integer. For example, integer of 65 is what? 65. If I'm saying integer of, I'm giving some input like 89. So whatever you write in the double quotes, it is what? String. Means you are converting string to what here? Integer. You are converting string to integer. Okay. So I'm trying to give some input. What is the input I've given to the integer function? ABs. But is it integer function is able to convert this ABC to integer? No. Immediately integer function will rise what? Error. So which error here? Value error. If you see this program itself, so we are giving some input to which one? Integer function. For example, if I enter the value of n1 is 5, the value of n2 is 2, then 5, 2 and 2.5. Suppose end user does a mistake. Instead of giving a number, by mistakenly is given what? ABC. But is it ABC is able to convert to integer? No. Immediately it is given which error? Value error. And your program is terminated or not? Yes. So who raises error? The errors are raised by what? Function. Why function will raise an error? Function is having some logic. If you give anything wrong to that function, then immediately it raises what? Error. If you give anything wrong to that function, anything you give wrong to that function, then it rises what? Error. Anything wrong to that function or against that logic. If you give any input which is against the logic, then you will get which one? Error. Against the logic, then you get which one? Error. Okay. Yes. Yes. A function raises an error. Then how can I avoid abnormal termination of program? For that, you are using what? Exception handling or error handling. So how can I handle these errors? So the following keywords are used to handle what is that? errors. Okay, is used in error handling, or exception handling. The following keywords are used in error handling or what exception handling. So what are the keywords are used in error handling or exception handling? So there is a keyword called try. So what is the keyword you are using? Try. And there is a keyword called accept. And there is a keyword called finally. And there is a keyword called rise. So only 4 keywords are there. Try, accept, finally, and one more is what? Rise. So these are the keywords which are used in error handling or exception handling. So first we'll see try block. So first we'll see what is this try block. So this block contains statements which raises errors during runtime. So whatever statements which raises an error during runtime, that statements you are writing in which block? Try block. Whatever statements which rises, okay, whatever statements which rises an error during runtime, so that statements you are writing in which block? Try block. Whatever statements which rises an error during runtime, whichever statements rises an error during runtime, so that statements you are writing in which block? Try block. Which statement rises an error, that statement you are writing in which block? Try block. Okay, right? So that statements you're writing in which block? Try block. Okay. So try to understand this. Okay. So this block contains the statements which raises error during runtime. Are the statements which has to be monitored, the statements which has to be monitored for exception handling. The statements which has to be monitored for exception handling are written inside this block. The statements which has to be monitored, the statements which has to be monitored, for exception handling. So that statements you are writing in, okay, that statements, okay, that statements you are writing in try block. I mean, whatever statements which raises error. So there is a try block. So inside this try block, you are including number of statements. There is a statement 1, statement 2, and followed by accept block. So try block followed by another block, which is called as accept block. Now here accept is called as an exception handler. Okay, this block handle exception. This block handle exception or error raised by which block? Try block. So try block followed by try block followed by one or more than one except block. Try block followed by one or more than one except block. So your try block followed by except block. Yeah. Yes. Your Java is a catch. In Java it is catch, but here except only. Okay. So that is about try block. And one more is except block. So you are writing like this. Okay, try block. So try block followed by one or more than one except block. Okay. So you are writing statements. There is a statement one, there is a statement two, and there is except block. It followed by error type. Means which type of error it can able to handle. Okay, error type means which type of error it can able to handle. So then again I can write except. Then it followed by error type. So which type of error it can able to handle. So there is a statement one, there is a statement two, there is a statement three, and there is a statement four like this. So if there is a error in try block, it is handled by which block? Except block. But which type of error? Suppose if try block rises value error, then you write except block with which error? Value error. If the try block is having zero division error, then you write except block with which error? Zero division error. So that you write except block with an error type. For example, if you see this statement itself, okay, yeah, this is the function main, and inside the try block, I'm writing n1 equal to integer of input, enter what? First number, enter first number, n2 equal to integer of input, enter which number here? Second number. So I try to input the first number, I try to input what? Second number. So I try to input how many numbers here? Two numbers. So there is a first number and there is what? Okay, there is a first number and there is what? Second number. I try to input two values. I try to input what here? Two values. Okay, so n3 equal to n1 divided by what here? N2. Okay, after that, I try to print the value of n1, n2, and what is that? N3. So now here, this statement will raise an error or not? Yes. Which error here? Except which error it will raise? Zero division error. So the statement will rise which error? Zero division error. So whenever there is a zero division error, that is handled by which block? Except the block. Of which type here? Zero division error. And here I'm trying to display the message saying that cannot divide, okay, cannot divide number with, okay, now this is user defined message or not? Yes. After handling the error, can I continue the rest of the statements or not? Yes, I'm writing here continue. So remaining statements get executed because the error is handled or not? Yes. Because the error is handled, rest of the statements get executed. Because the error is handled, the rest of the statements get what? Executed. So what will happen if I run this code? Now enter first number, which is 5. Enter second number. First number is 5. See in this example. First number I entered 5. So what is the first number I've given? 5. So 5 is the first number, n1. And the value of n2 is a 2. And then the value of n3 is n1 divided by n2, which is nothing but, so 5 divided by 2, and 5 divided by 2 is what here? 2.5. 5 divided by 2 is what here? 2.5, right? So you are trying to print, okay, the value of n1 is 5, the value of n2 is 2, the value of n3 is what? 2.5. Is it execution of try block is successful or not? Yes. There is no error in try block. On successful execution of try block, it will not execute which block? Except the block. Okay, because there is no error, right? There is no error. On successful execution of try block, it will not execute which block? Except the block. Okay. So what will happen? I get the result. Now 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. And then is it continued the rest of the statements or not? Yes. So I try to execute again. But this time I input the value of n1 as 5. The value of n2 is what? 0. Now here end user does the mistakes. Is given the value of n1 is 5 and is given the value of n2 is what? 0. Then n3 equal to n1 divided by n2. n3 equal to n1 divided by n2, which is nothing but 5, divided by what? 0. Then immediately your main function create one error object. What is that error object is? Zero division error object. Zero division error. And this zero division error is given to the Python virtual machine. So what Python virtual machine is doing? It is looking for exception handling. It is looking for exception handler. Which one is called exception handler here? Except. Means Python virtual machine is looking for exception handler with which type here? Zero division error. It is looking for exception handler of which type here? Zero division error. Is it there is a exception handler with zero division error or not? Yes. So here I get the message cannot divide a number with 0. It means predefined error message. You convert it into which message? User defined. And after that, will it do the continue or not? Yes. It will do the continue. Continue. So what will happen? So there is a message. Now cannot divide a number with 0 and continue. Continue executing rest of the statements. But is it your program is terminated? No. Your program is not terminated. Okay. Your program is not terminated. Okay. So to avoid this abnormal termination of program, you have to write this exception handlers. But how you know it, which statement will raise what error? Now that you come across when you start developing application or when you read the documentation. For example, integer function is there. Integer function job is converting string to integer, converting integer to integer, string to integer, float to integer, float to integer, integer to integer, and string to integer. But the string should have, when you're converting string to integer, the string must have the appropriate format or not. Yes. If the format is wrong, then immediately integer function will raise what? Error. Now, when you read the documentation of any function, right? If you read the documentation of any function, for example, so this is an integer function, right? So if you read the documentation of integer class or integer function, now you can see integer. Somewhere you can find this raises one error. Okay, somewhere you can find it raises which error? Some error. Which error it is? Somewhere you find this because when you use this integer, okay, maybe when you read the documentation, you come across this. Arguments are given. So return an integer object constructed from an return an integer object constructed from a number or a string, or return 0 if arguments are given. If x is defined integer, yes, maybe somewhere you can find raising an error. Okay, maybe. Okay, right. Now, in the same way, now as a developer, you should know it. So when you're developing application, you have to handle all the errors. Means you'll try to check your program by giving different inputs. For example, if now my program is handle only one error. My program is handle which error? Zero division error. But what will happen if I enter this as ABC? So what is the input I've given here? 5. What is the input I've given here? 5. So is it this 5 is converted to integer or not? Yes. But what is the input I've given here? ABC. Is it ABC converted to integer? No. Then immediately integer function rises what? Error. Now who will raise an error? Integer function rises an error. What is that error? Value error. Type is correct only, string only, but within the string there should be value, right? Which type of value should be there inside the string? Integer. But is it integer is there or alphabets are there? Alphabets. Then immediately it rises which error? Value error. This value error is given to what? Python virtual machine. So what Python virtual machine is doing? It is looking for exception handler. It is looking for exception handler of which type? Value error. But is it any except block with the value error? No. Then Python virtual machine is having default exception handler. Python virtual machine is having default exception handler. So what this default exception handler will do is, it will display this complete information. Okay, it will display the complete information which is there in this exception object. So that is, it will try to display the predefined error message. It will display which error message? Predefined error message. And after displaying that error message, will it continue or terminates? Terminates. Because is it this error is handled or not handled? Not handled. This error is not handled. If error is not handled, your program execution is terminated. So to avoid this abnormal termination, definitely you have to handle all the errors. So but we handle only one error. Which error is handled? Zero division. But to handle multiple errors, you have to write try block with multiple which blocks? Except blocks. You have to write a try block with multiple except blocks. Now this is accepted and it followed by which error? Which error it is? Value error. So input must be which type? Integer type. So this is user defined error message. So 5 and ABC, you can see input must be integer type and continue the rest of the statements or not. Yes. Okay, now that is how you are trying to handle errors here. But except block, you can write either one except block. You can write either one except block to handle one error. You write multiple except blocks to handle multiple errors. If a try block is raising multiple errors, you write multiple except blocks. If try block is raising multiple errors, you write multiple except block. But I said every error is one class. Every error is one class or one type. And where these classes are there in library. All these classes are there inside one library. All these classes are there inside one library, right? So this library means all these are the error classes used by which functions? Predefined one. Suppose integer. Means all these error types are used by Python libraries only. For example, integer function uses which error? Value error. Suppose list is there. For example, list. If we take a list, suppose list of, I can use a list to construct a list by using range. It means list required iterable. What list required iterable? Okay, it can convert any iterable into which type? List type. But if I'm saying list of 10, if I say list of 10, but 10 is which value here? Integer value. Okay, 10 is which value? Integer value. Now, can you convert this integer to the list? No. You cannot convert this integer to what here? List. Because integer is not a collection. Then immediately it is given which error? Type error. Immediately it is given which error here? Type error. Okay. Yes. So as a developer, you should know which function rises what error. Suppose some of the errors I'll try to write, like when you get which type of error is. For example, zero division error. So when will you get zero division error? See, you come across so many errors. Okay. Suppose when you work with networking, you come across networking errors. If you are working with the files, you get which errors? File related errors. If you are working with database, you'll get which errors? Database related errors. If you are working with multi-threading, you come across which errors? Multi-threading errors. Okay, when you learn or when you develop each application using one library, you come across different types of errors. Now, it's a responsibility a programmer to handle all these errors, right? By using try, and one more is what? Except a block. Try and accept a block. Suppose these are some of the errors, right? Like zero division error. So when you get the zero division error, so when you get the zero division error raised when the second argument of division or modulo operator is what? Zero. Okay. then there is one more error, which is called as value errors here. Value error. So when you'll get this value error, so raised when operation or function receives, okay, raised when the operation or function receives an argument that has a right type but inappropriate value. So type is correct, but value is what here? Incorrect. The type is a correct, but value is a incorrect. Then immediately you'll get which error? Value error. Immediately you'll get which error? Value error. Immediately you'll get which error? Value error. So there is an error. It's like type error. Now some of the errors, and I'm writing description of it. Some of the errors, and I'm writing a description of it. Now arises when an operation is applied to an object of an inappropriate type. The associated value is a string giving the details about the type mismatch. So actually this is the description raised when operation or function is applied to an object of which type? Inappropriate type. For example, list required collection type, but we have given standard type. Then immediately it gives which error? Type error. Immediately it gives which error? Type error. Now one except block is handle only one type of error. But I want to use one except block to handle multiple types of errors. I want to use one except block which handle multiple types of errors. So how to handle multiple types of errors using one except block. One except block. How can you handle? How to handle multiple types of errors using one except block? Now except block without type. Except block. Okay, except block without a type. Without a type is able to handle any type of error, is able to handle any type of error without type. This is also called a generic except block. This is also called a generic except block. So except block without a type. Suppose if I'm writing except block with a type, this except block is able to handle which error? Zero division error. And this except block is handle which error? Value error. But I don't want to write two except blocks. I want to write only one except block that can able to handle zero division error as well as what? Value error. Zero division error as well as value error. So how can I handle that? I want to handle both errors, zero division error as well as value error. Suppose I write like this. So B equal to input, enter the value of which one? B. Enter the value of A and enter the value of B, and C equal to A divided by B, and print A value, B value and C value. Now this I should write inside which block here? Try block. I should write this inside a try block and followed by except block. But are you given any type for this except block? No. So there's no type is given here. There's no type. Means if the type is not given, this is able to handle any error or not? Yes. This except block is able to handle any type of error. But here, what message I should display? Here, what message I should display? Because this try block raises how many errors? Tell me, this try block raises how many errors? This try block raises how many errors? This try block raises how many errors here? 2 errors, right? One is value error, and second one is a value error, right? Okay, one is a value error, and second one is a zero division error. But is it any except block with the value error? No. Is it any except block with the zero division error? No. But there is an except block with any type. Means now this can be able to handle any error or not? Yes. But I need to write one message which is common for both errors. Now that will become some confusion or not? Yes. Which error end user cannot understand. But what will happen when there is an error? I said, whenever there is an error, okay, the function will create error object. And this error object is given to whom? Python virtual machine. So Python virtual machine. Who is holding this error object? Python virtual machine. And Python virtual machine is looking for except a block with appropriate type error. Suppose value error is there. Then Python virtual machine look for except a block of which type? Value error. Is it except a block with value error is there? No. Then it is handled by the except block with what? Any type. But who is having the address of exception object? Python virtual machine. Now, can I get the information about this? Yes. For that, you can use here one module called sys module. Within the sys is referring to what? System. Now, what is a runtime system provided by Python? Python virtual machine. Who provide the runtime environment for this? Python virtual machine. Python virtual machine. Who provides it? Python virtual machine. It's in Python virtual machine, right? Okay, right now there is a except block. And here what I can do is I can write system dot exception info. There is one function here. What is the name of the function is exception info, which is there in which module? Sys module. So what this exception info will do it? So this is exception info. Sys dot exception info. This will return one tuple. This will return one tuple. It will return one tuple, okay, that contain, what is the type of error? It will return one tuple that contain what is the type of error, and what is the error message, and what is the error object is. Error object address. This complete information is held by this tuple. For example, 5 and 2 execution is successful. I try to execute again. Enter the value of A, enter 5 and ABC. Can you convert this ABC to integer? No. So immediately raised an error. Which error is raised? Value error. And this is the error description. And this is the address of that particular object. But I don't want this complete information. I want only error description. Then I'll say T of 1. So enter the value of A is 10. The value of B is a 0. Now you can see division by 0. Okay. So I try to enter A value is 10. B value is ABC. Invalid return for integer with base what? 10. This is a predefined error message or user defined? Predefined. But how I get now this? I try to get the information from the Python virtual machine by calling which function here? Exception info. So this function will return one tuple, and from tuple you are trying to read one value. From tuple you are trying to read one value. Which value you are trying to read? You are trying to read one value. Which value you are trying to read? You are trying to read one value, right? Which value you are trying to read? You are reading the error description. Exception info returns. So here, exception info. Exception info is a predefined function of. Exception info is a predefined function of sys module. Exception info is a predefined function of sys module. Exception info is a predefined function of sys module. So this function returns a tuple which consists of exception type, and error message and exception object ID. Exception object ID or address. So sys is a default module. Sys is a module. Sys module comes with the Python. Comes with what here? Python software. You don't require to install it. It comes with the Python software, right? So using this, sys module is used to communicate. Use it to communicate with whom? Python virtual machine. Using sys module, you can able to communicate with what? Python virtual machine. So you can write multiple except blocks to handle multiple types of errors. You can write one except block to handle multiple errors. But always preferable to write multiple except blocks. Always preferable to write multiple except blocks to handle multiple types of errors, but rather than handling it by writing how many? One except block. Okay. So there is one more keyword is there, which is called as, what is that another keyword you have? Finally. So tomorrow I'll talk about how to work with this finally keyword. And even we'll see rise keyword and other things, right? So today we'll stop it here and tomorrow we'll continue this, right? Thank you.